Morning, everybody. Mark Gilbert here. It's great to be back with you again here on the Saturday morning Science of Mind Conversations series. And I was getting some feedback there with my own sound, so I had to turn it down, and hopefully we'll have a beautiful sound thing. I see we got a couple of people watching already. I would encourage you to go ahead and put your name and where you're from in the comment field. Good morning, Shay. I see you're here with us this morning, and I think you might have been here last time when I had some funky sound issues going on, and I'm hoping they are not occurring today. So Shay, I'll ask you, can you hear me okay? And if you just drop me a note and say yay or nay or whatever, it'd be great. Hopefully the answer is yes. In any case, I just want to mention to everyone that it is that time of year where we transcend beyond the Science of Mind textbook and into other resources. If you were watching the intro when we were coming in this morning, one of the things that it shows is that we cover the Science of Mind textbook chapter by chapter, and we do that earlier in the year. We started in January. No, the sound is weird again, Shay says. Okay. Wow. You know, everything seems to be okay on my end, and I tested it, so I'm really not sure what to do, to be honest. It says I'm using the right microphone and all of that. So calling in tech help. Okay. Well, you know, it's very difficult for me to know what to do here. And I am just going to sort of plow through here, and hopefully we can have you hearing me. So I am going to maybe change a little bit orientation to the microphone and see if that helps any. And I'm glad you can still hear me, Shay. Thank you very much for that. Anyway, what we're doing this week is we're now in that period of the year where we go beyond the Science of Mind textbook and we look at other things. And so what I'm going to be doing this week is I'm looking at a little book from Ernest Holmes that is called The Keys to Wisdom. The Keys to Wisdom. And it is a great little book that I want to tell you a little bit about. It was published posthumously by the folks at Science of Mind Publishing after Ernest Holmes died in early 1960. It is a lot of books, a lot of his writings actually came out after his death because he was such a prolific person that he had so many talks, magazine articles, and things of that nature that he was had a lot of content that they could pull from. So the editors and publishers of Science of Mind at the time, after his passing, created a lot of contents and books. They continued pulling material from their treasure trove of unpublished Holmes work and published it as magazine articles, and continued to have articles were written by Holmes, but they were really content created by him either for classes or for magazine articles or for talks and things of that nature. And so we basically have a lot of these posthumous books. In fact, we continue to bring stuff out. I've talked about before on this program, you know, that I serve as a researcher for the Science of Mind archives. And one of the things that we did a few years ago was bring out a book called Ernest Holmes at Asilomar, which was all of the unpublished talks and classes he had done at the Asilomar summer conferences in the 1950s. The book's been well received. A lot of more content that we are sifting through at the archives to bring out in some sort of book format, specifically material around his classes that he did. He had a Tuesday invitational class that he would offer people to come into and talk about things with him that were a little more deeper metaphysically. And so we are looking at doing something along those lines, and maybe for next year. So that's in the works as well. And hopefully that's exciting. Keys to Wisdom, though, was one of three small books that Willis Kinnear, who was the publisher of Science of Mind magazine, brought out in the 1960s after Holmes' death. Keys to Wisdom were books that we called the Notebooks of Ernest Holmes. And he created 3 volumes of these notebooks. And this is what the book looked like when it was published. It is no longer in print. You can pick up a copy sometimes on eBay or things like that, where used books are sold, and they're quite pricey. But if you would like to get a copy of this book, it is available from the Science of Mind archives. You can download it for free if you're a website subscriber or a member of the archives. So I would encourage you to consider becoming a member or subscribe to the Science of Mind archives. The URL for the website is going across the screen right now. If you subscribe, it's only $10 a month to be a subscriber, or $16 a month to be a friend of the archive, which gets you extra benefits. I'll talk about that in a second. You get access to 20 downloads a month, and the 20 downloads would include this book, Keys to Wisdom. Now, what Kinnear did was he took notebooks that Ernest Holmes kept of talks, Sunday talks he did, and classes he did, other things, and where there were a lot of times they were transcribed, or either they were recorded or a person would be taking shorthand and transcribe the talk later. He would go back through his talks and pull out paragraphs and quotes of things he thought were really highlightable. And so he kept notebooks of his of the pertinent things that even he felt that was impressive, that he wanted to make sure they were kept. And so Kinnear went through Ernest Holmes' notebooks after he died and pulled out a lot of the quotes that Ernest had kept from his talks and published them in 3 small books, 3 small volumes. As you can see from the one I'm holding up, it's a very small book, and it has maybe a little under 100 pages in it, and the book is primarily just little quotes and sections like that. And so, but the book is also available through the Science of Mind archives. It's a PDF downloadable. And so if you're interested in getting on that, you can either buy it for, I think it's $6 at the archives, but if you're a friend or a subscriber, it can be one of your 20 downloads that you get per month. So I encourage you to go to there and pick it up. And like I said, it's out of print. You get it from the archives. The 3 volumes that Kinnear published, were published under the titles Keys to Wisdom, which we're looking at today, New Horizons, or Gateway to Life. So these are the 3 books that were published based on quotes and passages from Ernest Holmes' own notebooks. Now, we'll mention Kinnear also published a lot of Ernest Holmes books in the 60s and 70s that were published under the names Science of Mind Annual. They later became just standalone books for that, but they were initially published as a little book called Science of Mind Annual. Every year they would publish one little paperback book, and it would be a lot of Holmes' writings that had never been published before. And then over time, they got republished under their own names, which is like, it's up to you, and there's a whole series of them that were published. And they're good books as well. There's so much content out there on Holmes. But what I want to do today is to look at some of the quotes. And I'm going to be throwing some quotes up on the screen from his book, Keys to Wisdom. And I hope that these quotes draw something from you. I've got the first one up there now. And what I want to do is when I put these quotes up there, I want you to think about, what does this mean to you? What does this mean to you? And what I would like you to do is, again, share your name, where you're from in the comment field, so I can throw that up and indicate that you're here and acknowledge you. But if you have a comment or thought about the quote that I put on the screen, I would love to hear from you on what you think that quote means to you, what that quote means to you. And I'm going to be giving sort of my take on the quotes as well as we go through the next few minutes, looking at this book, Keys to Wisdom. And that's when we constantly discard old ideas and take on new and better ones. The mind gives us no rest. The instinct urges us on. The intuition draws us upward. When Holmes made this comment, what was he talking about? Was he talking about to you? You know, to me, what he's saying is that there is something in us that's pushing us to grow and evolve and move upward. And one of those things is that what he calls a divine urge, an urge in us to be creatively expressing ourselves in our lives, and also the urge to move upward towards the spirit. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, but we're mired in the world of physical effects and the world that's going on around us. And what I want to do is to make sure that we move upward in our consciousness, the recognition that there's a transcendent field or a life that transcends the physical form. And Holmes continuously points us to that. So with yes, our human experiences are real experiences, but we're moving and evolving upward. And there's an urge in us that's pushing us not only to express our creative talents, but expressing us to create new ideas, expressing us to move and evolve upward. And so that thing, when we listen to spirit, it's intuition talking to us. Intuition talks to us. It gives us information and flows. Many years ago, when I was first learning to meditate, I would sit on the meditation cushion and there would be ideas flowing through me. And I would get frustrated because I wanted to quiet my mind, have some sort of meditative experience. But what I recognized over time was that a lot of that information flowing through me was intuitive wisdom. So oftentimes I would stop after meditation, just jot down notes, things that had come through meditation. So meditation was not only a time for quieting my mind, but it was a time for getting in tune with the infinite and feeling like turning on a radio station and dialing the frequency. That meditation allowed me to connect into that intuition at a greater level. So what does that quote mean for you? If you've thought about that, I would love to hear your comments on it. And, I think that we all can feel, if you're here today, you'll probably feel that intuitive urge within you that's pushing you on inward and upward. Let's look at another quote. All the holy books of the world were written by people like ourselves. We have many of our Christian friends who truly believe that the Christian Bible is the inherent word of God. It was dictated by God from divine sources. I have no doubt that some of the people who transcribed the Bible back in 2,000, 3,000 years ago, that some of the aspects of what they were receiving was probably divinely inspired flow, just like I was talking about a moment ago. But the key thing is that it was a desired flow. It wasn't, spirit writing the words down. It was spirit working through someone, and that we are all those ones that can be worked through. So holy books have wisdom for us, but they are not to be venerated at any greater degree, really, than the holy works that comes through all of us. And we all can create holy works if we so desire. So when we look at books like the Quran and the Bible, yes, they're inspired divinely, just as many Hindu texts and Buddhist texts are inspired divinely. But we also are divinely inspired by the inspiration that's flowing through us. So what do you think that means? If any of these quotes catch you, drop a little note in the comment field. I would love to see your comments on what you think is that quote is going on. And again, I hope you can hear me okay. I understand there's a little problem with the sound. Let's look at another quote. Again, this all comes from Keys to Wisdom, a small book published after Ernest Holmes' death, taken from his notebooks of quotes and passages that he gave in talks and speeches and classes that he felt were so critical and important that he wanted to put them down and write them. And they were collected into 3 small volumes after his death. The first of which is Keys to Wisdom, available from the Science of Mind archives. It's one of your free downloads if you're a member or subscriber. This quote, I thought appropriate, considering all of the stuff that's going on in the world today. Every time we talk with people, there's concerns about the state of our political world. There's a lot of people walking on eggshells and feeling a lot of angst over the physical world's political environment. And I certainly understand those feelings. But here's a quote from Holmes from one of his notebooks that was in this book. He says, no government can legislate morals or ethics any more than a government can legislate happiness or peace of mind. These are qualities which the soul must immediately perceive and immediately experience and do so individually. It's there seems to be a natural inclination in us as human beings to seek a savior outside of us. There's a natural step, I think, for many of us on our spiritual path as we're moving through this human experience where everything appears to be in a duality, separate and apart. I appear separate from you, you are separate from me. This technology is separate from me, etc. But as you grow on the spiritual path, you recognize that all of this is a oneness. It's all interconnected in a vast degree of the divine that God is expressing through you and me and through this technology and through everything we interact with. So it's all God, as is the government that we call our leaders, and any religion or any of the other institutions that are in our world of form. And we oftentimes have an indication or a feeling within us when things aren't going right that we want something outside of us to come in and catch us and surround us and protect us and save us. The very nature of one common understanding of Christianity, which I don't think is the accurate one, to be honest, but is that people feel like, you have to accept Jesus as your Savior in order to be saved in this lifetime. There's like a looking outside yourself for this entity, Jesus. Now, I believe Jesus has a great power, and we can have a presence and relationship with Jesus. That the Christ consciousness in us, and we'll see quotes on this later, is something in us that touches us into the same God energy that God was in, that God was in Jesus. But I don't think that, looking at Jesus as an external being, as someone who's going to save me, is the meaning of my life, nor the meaning of yours. Nor do I see that government is there to save us, or any particular person is there to save us. In fact, all of the external searching is just a process we go through in order to know ourselves better and recognize that the answer and the salvation was already with us all the time. The one we were looking for was us, was in us. God was already in us. That our salvation was to turn our attention inward and to find that God in us in its wisdom and its intuition, and recognize that it had the ability to shift our thinking and awareness so that we could, in a sense, save ourselves. And that's ultimately what it's about. It's about changing our consciousness to recognizing our oneness, and that the divine and Christ consciousness that was in Jesus is in us, and that we can tap into it. And it is pushing us and urging us along to remember the truth of our divine oneness with all that is. Nothing outside of us is going to be telling us what ethically to do. That all of this is something that we have to learn and grow from. Again, if this resonates with you or not, or you have a thought on the quote that differs from my interpretation, I pulled these quotes out the other day, and to be honest, I'm shooting from the hip as I read them on the screen and telling you what I think. If you've got a thought, your thought is for you. And I would love you to share your thought as well. So if you have a thought on any of these quotes, even if I've moved on to another quote, drop me a note. Drop a note in the comment field. Again, if you're watching, I'd love to hear from you, know who's here watching and where you're from. So otherwise, let's go to another quote. I like this one. Instead of looking on our problems as things difficult to solve, we should look upon every problem as but an added possibility, an added opportunity for self-expression. We tend to look at problems as things that are like barriers to our lives. I was talking about politics a minute ago, and not to take us into the political realm in this conversation this morning, but I do know that this is weighing very heavily on all people's minds and hearts these days, and they see it as a problem. But you could be having other problems. It could be problems with your job, financial problems, problems in relationships, problems with your health, any kind of difficulty or challenge you're faced with. We can focus on it and focus on how we can't solve it, and that it's difficult to solve. As we often say, what we resist persists. So the more we see our problems as problems, the more those problems continue to present barriers for us. What Holmes is asking us to do is to see our problems as an opportunity for us to grow. They're for self-expression. They're for us to learn something here in this world of form and to grow and push through it and become a higher version of ourselves. So he's telling us here, instead of looking at your problems as something you can't solve or difficult to solve, It's something that's given you a possibility. So where are the possibilities in your life right now? Where are the problems that are giving you an opportunity to grow and evolve and express your self-expression? So, any in any case, um, and let's see. Irene, this quote was very helpful for me. Yeah, I hope I'm pulling it up on the quote that you're looking at. Yeah, it's very, to me, I agree. It's one of those things where it's very easy in your humanness, in our humanness, that um, we are focused on the problems and can't seem to overcome them. And I'll just mention this because I've mentioned it a couple of times. I checked in at the very beginning, and yeah, there's some problems with my audio, but everything on my end seems to be okay. And this happened last time I was leading the show, so I'm really sort of not sure what to do. And I'm going to talk to the folks at the New Thought Media Network. Maybe we'll do a trial run with my speaker system again or my microphone because I used to have no problems. And I apologize that the sound is wavering in and out. And I'm just, this happened last time, and we are just going to push through. Apologies that my voice comes in and out for you. A problem, which we can look at as a possibility for an added opportunity for self-expression. And it's I choose to say, okay, let's look and see how we can serve and do this, even in spite of that. And hopefully the words are coming through. Maybe what we can say, and maybe you'll hear this, is that if every few words there's a drop-off, insert your own words into what I'm saying. Insert your own thoughts, because the wisdom's in you as well. All I'm doing is serving as a conduit to help you ignite and recognize the truth that is already in you. Okay. Holmes went on to say in his notebooks, there's a divine urge or a gentle pressure within everyone. It's a dynamic source seeking an outlet through all creation. And whenever we let it, there's an influx of it into our nature. I've been talking about this already, the divine urge, that when we were born, itself into everything. This process of evolution and involution. Involution, the spirit involving itself in its creation. The entire material universe was created by divine, by God, by spirit, by the thing itself, and God or spirit embedded aspects of itself, characteristics of itself into its entire creation. So you and I, the very nature that we have the power of love, consciousness, a divine urge that expresses to express, an urge to evolve. These are all evidence of the divine within us, calling us home, allowing us to wander around as human beings, in this spiritual beings having this human experience. So in our human experience, we're wandering around in the desert, in the darkness, going through things, trying to move through and understand it better, trying to move through challenges, so-called problems. But there's a pressure continuously in us, says, that is seeking an outlet through all of its creation. So you and I are points where the divine is seeking to express itself and push outward and evolve upward. I often envision this like little, you see the flat surface of water and little areas of it are hopping up like waves. That every little expression is the spirit expressing is that wave, and it's a seeking to jump upward and return to its source. So we are all like that, pushing and growing onward. So hopefully you're seeing a common theme and trying to bring that out. Here's another quote. There can be only one life principle. There can only be one God. Therefore, there can be only one man. I'll stop and always acknowledge Holmes wrote in the early part of the 20th century. Today we write more inclusively. We would have said only one person, a man or a woman, but we are not. But he wrote in that time frame. So let's plug in person, humanity, man and woman, etc. Whenever you read that, there can be only one man. We are all that man. We are one in God, and God is one in us. Again, if you take a science online class, this is one of the key points that they start off with right in the beginning of every class, that everything is oneness, everything is God, everything is the thing itself. I like how a New Thought writer, William Walker Atkinson, in the Kabbalion, said, it's the all. He called it the all. It's like encompassing everything that is. So everything in the world of form and everything that transcends the world of form, that is everything in the material world, everything that we would label as not material, that on the flip side of life, the transcendent aspect of life, all of it is God. All of it is God. The entire universe, or multiverses, is God. Okay? So, and there's only one principle of life moving through it. So that one God is that one life force. He, she, it is embedding itself into its creation, those divine characteristics. So again, it's the remembrance that we are all in this flow of oneness. We are aspects of that one. Again, I know I'm repeating myself, but when we focus on our life and our issues, it reminds us that we're separate and apart. And what we need to do is take time every day to focus on our commonality, the fact that we are one. The more we can shift our attention towards you and I are one, everything that I experience that appears to be outside of me is connected with me in a vast degree of oneness, that is the divine, and everything that I'm interacting with is God expressing as that thing. God's Aurobindo wrote it, and Holmes quoted this because he loved it so much, is that we exist for the bliss of the divine. We exist for the bliss of the divine. The bliss of the divine is created by the divine having itself, that it came from the divine, and then interacting in relationship with itself. And so when we interact with one another, it's God talking to God. It's the divine interacting with the divine. And that interaction is for the bliss of that underlying spirit of God. So, again, if any of these quotes raise a question, or anything I'm saying raises a question, or you have another take on it, or a deeper take on it, just, be sure to drop a comment on it. I'm watching the comments to see if we get something in. I do recognize and apologize for the sound problems I know that you're having. Let's move on to the next slide. Or the sound problems I'm having, or we're having is the one. The spirit could know nothing outside itself. That would be God and something else. Spirit is all, the center and circumference of everything that exists, both manifest and unmanifest. I think I just said this in other words a moment ago. Everything is one, but spirit can't know anything other than spirit. So when we're experiencing something that we think is less than, all it is spirit that's forgotten its source, an aspect, an individualized expression of spirit. So when we look at those people who are arguing with us, or we're in conflict with, or when we look out at the world and we see all the political divisiveness, all it is people who are spirit with different perspectives, arguing with spirit with different perspectives. And what we need to do is, we can, and that doesn't mean we can't have our own perspective on it. We have a human experience, and we're moving through stuff too. So yeah, we can look at it. But one of the things that's important is that when you see that conflict, is to not be enmeshed in the conflict. Yes, have healthy boundaries. Yes, speak up for what you believe is true and all of that. But at the same time, do it in a way that honors other people in their own individual ways in which they are perspectives on the topic. That I often look at it that if I see people who are acting different from me, believing different from me, then I recognize that if I had been born into their life and lived their experiences, I probably would believe like they do, and act like they do. And it opens me to compassion. Doesn't mean I got to agree with it, but I got to see that we all are one. It's all spirit talking to spirit. And that opens me to a greater and grander expression of the oneness. There's a long quote. Nothing in the manifest universe stays put. Nothing is permanent. It's the lack of permanence in the objective world that makes it subject to the interior process of a universal will. Everything is will and representation. Mind is permanent, real, and eternal. It never changes. The activity of mind forever changes. There is always change in the midst of permanency. There's a lot in this paragraph, and we could unpack a lot of different things out of it. But I'm only going to highlight a couple. And if you see something you want to highlight, drop a comment in the comment field. But first off, nothing in the manifest universe is permanent. Now let's make a distinction between the manifest universe and the aspect of God or spirit. Mind, he says later on, is permanent, real, and eternal. Now, wait a minute. What's mind? Well, we got to make a distinction because in the common vernacular, mind, especially in the realm of materialists, people who look at mind from a scientific, materialistic standpoint, say mind is a byproduct of the firing of the neurons in our brain, etc. We have a mind, we carry it around in our skull. Science of mind looks at it differently. Science of mind is the underlying essence of spirit and conscious awareness that exists in all of us. So mind with a capital M is reflecting big mind of God. And the big mind or permanence is permanent. Our individual minds, our individual use of mind can change as we grow and evolve and think differently. So we can look back on our lives and see that what I believed as Mark when I was younger is much different than what I believe as Mark now, simply because I've grown and evolved and learned. So that aspect of my mind is actually a use of the one big mind. Where I have conscious awareness of my own thoughts, there's a degree of impermanency. There's that urge in me pushing me to learn and to grow, to evolve. All of the forms in this universe around us continuously see things birthing, going through a process, and then dying. The seasons change, the day comes and goes. Things that we thought we discard. Our entire life is an experience of temporary nature of things flowing through them. That's in the manifest universe. But as we turn to the unmanifest realm of spirit, the thing itself, to mind with a capital M, we're tapping into a realm that is permanent. It's often talked about the fact that we live in the relative world because we're relating to one another in relation, and that is our temporary world, is our world of relations. But at the highest levels of spirit, there's the absolute realm where things are not in relationship. They know they're all one. And so we are on a gradient from the world of form to the world of spirit. As we move from form to spirit, we move from temporary nature to the recognition of the unity and oneness of everything. But we don't just leave form, we come back and live in form with a greater awareness of it. So the idea is to recognize that it's the lack of permanence in this objective world that makes it subject to the interior process of a universal will. We look out at the world and see how it changes. We have within access to us the permanent spirit through intuition, where we can now call into and see the temporary nature of the objective world and to ask ourselves, what would be a higher expression in this world? And that we can tap into the absolute, the divine God, power of the divine, to bring about a higher level of expression in the world of form. So this is what causes us to say there's a gap between what spirit knows is possible, what we're experiencing in the world, physical world. There's a gap between those. In our consciousness, we can continue to move up to bridge that gap. I'll throw the next quote up here, but in the meantime, Irene, I'm going to acknowledge your comment. Recent events have grabbed my attention, leaving me asking a lot of questions. Spirit leaves me in confusion. Yeah, I get it. And I know that you're not alone in this. It seems like every group that I go to or talk with, every class, every call, there is a lot of people who are looking at the world right now. And it goes back to that quote earlier about seeing things as problems. And it's easy for us to focus on the world out there and like wondering, why is this going on? I'll just take an aside and share a couple of thoughts for a moment and hopefully they're helpful. One is that life and our evolution, I, in my mind, I imagine it's sort of like a stock market chart. You've seen these charts where they go up and down, but the overall arc is up. Yet temporarily, things take a dip. We can look back historically to say when the rise of Nazi Germany and World War II and Great Depression, and it seemed like life was going through a lot of challenges back then. But then we came out of them into a world of prosperity and new technology and new faiths and transfer and access to wider levels of spiritual faith all across the world and its world's traditions. So much of life went upwards, and then there was downward arc, say in the 60s, but also an upward arc. Continuously, things have been on a prosperity arc. So there's this continuous movement upward, but there's always a dip, and then a continued growth, a dip, and a continued growth. So you can look at the trend of humanity that way in our evolution as we evolve back to oneness and spirit. It gives you hope that yes, we may be going through a temporary dip. We need to hold firm to the fact that spirit is calling us home, that we are holding in our own lives, bringing more love and oneness and compassion into our expression. You can create in you a good life and recognize it in the outer world, not what you wished them to be. It's to create your highest life and do that in the way that you feel best you can. Another thought that I would share, and it relates to seeing the spiritual concept that life moves much like a pendulum. Gets to that first thing, but why do the dips occur? Even though, why not just a straight upward growth? Well, life shifts back and forth. As energies, we move in one direction and we move in another. We move towards very inclusive nature. We move through exclusiveness. We've moved through, you can take every aspect of life. We move through aggregated wealth in the hands of a few to wealth and being distributed more equitably. Our power is the growth of governments has been the same way. That there's been monarchies leading to dictators. The benevolent monarchs pass away, dictators take over, lead to the birth of democracies. Democracies flourish. There's times that we have waxing and waning of everything. And so I think a lot of the questions that people have right now that I'm getting from people relate to the fact that we are in one of those dips. We're on a pendulum. And the pendulum swing also gives me optimism because we know that humanity goes and it swings far out. And one of the things that I think a lot of times our human experiences give us is contrast. It's contrast about what we like and what we don't like. If you're a fan of the Abraham Hicks teachings, I know they stress this a lot in theirs, is that oftentimes the contrast gives us the knowledge and wisdom of what we don't want. Sometimes we have to move through the stages of experience of what we don't want so that we as humans can collectively come to the grips with the fact that this is not what we want and we want something better. And then we push through our consciousness the pendulum back. So we go through experiences, we go through problems, and all of the problems are simply opportunities for us to grow, as the quote was earlier. So it can lead us in confusion because it's not what we want. But our desire is to try to see through it and to try to see how can we take this in our own lives and be a conduit for good, for love. What is it we want to bring on the planet? And can we bring more of it on the planet and do that in our own sphere of influence? It's real easy to look at the world out there and say, oh, the world is big and I'm just this one little individual. And what ability do I have to change the world out there? And what I want you to remember is that we all are change agents. The very nature of your consciousness and your interactions with others, you have a sphere of influence and people that you can talk on. Yes, do things in the world of politics, in the world of form. Write your congressman, write the people that you want them to take action to do things. Join political movements and causes and do all of that stuff that you're called to do. But certainly in your sphere of influence, seek clarity to recognize that all of the things that we are moving through are simply worldly experiences that are opportunities to call us to see what we want and don't want, and to create more of what we want in the world of form, to bring more love and more compassion to the planet. So if we can do that, then we can change how we look at these worldly events. They may not change immediately to the degree that we want, but we can change how we look at them and see the gifts that they're giving us, even if it doesn't feel that way in your heart. Mind is the only creative agency known to science. To philosophy or to religion, mind in its conscious state is synonymous with spirit. Mind in its subjective state, reacting creatively to the will or imagination of spirit, is law. The result is form. I sort of hit on this a few minutes ago. We're running out of time, so I'm not going to go into great depth on this, other than to remind yourself that when we say science of mind, the capital M, it's talking about that vast array of consciousness, both objective and subjective consciousness that is within everything. So everything in the universe has mind or consciousness within it. Consciousness is not contained within just the skulls of people walking around. Everything has consciousness or mind in it. Consciousness exists at an objective level where we know what we're thinking about, and consciousness also exists at a subjective level where it is the collective memories that are impacting this collective consciousness, and they act as a creative force to act on our thoughts to create the physical form. So that is a basic teaching of science of mind, that our thoughts are creative. By consciously thinking and acting in alignment with a higher thought, we can create what we want in the form. And so the problems we're seeing in the world, we have a role within us by understanding this philosophy to move us along in our own thinking, to recognize our oneness, to be a force for good on the planet however we can. Okay. Now, there's lots more quotes. I only gave you a brief sampling of these quotes. I want to thank you all for spending some time with me today. I apologize that the sound has been going off in and out. I would invite you again to go seek out this book. You can find it, it's out of print, but you can find a PDF downloadable version from the Science of Mind Archives website at scienceofmindarchives.com. The book is available as a free download. If you are a member or a friend of the archive, you get 20 downloads a month. I would encourage you to do that. I want to thank everybody for participating today, for listening in on this presentation. And I want to remind you that if you enjoy the programming here, to be sure to go to the New Thought Media Network and click on the donate button and make a donation to the network. It's your donations to help keep these programs coming and help volunteers such as myself have a medium for reaching you so we can have discussions like this today. I apologize for the sound issues. I will work that out, make sure it is working before the next time that I'm with you. And I want to thank you for the great comments today. And be sure to join us next Saturday when another speaker comes and shares with you from the Science of Mind Conversations series. So thank you. Thank you so much today. Thank you, David, for your comment. And let me just simply say, enjoy your week. Enjoy your journey. Thank you.